from self-discovery to unapologetic passion, from inner strength to outward influence. It's Your Turn charts the journey of empowerment. Welcome to our series, where the book comes to life. In each episode, we explore a chapter's wisdom through real stories. We uncover the strategies that turn potential into power. And we witness how one woman's journey can inspire countless others. Prepare to see yourself in these pages and voices. Because with every story, we're reminded, it's your turn to write the next chapter.
Welcome to another episode of the book interview for It's Your Turn. And today I am sitting here with Åshild Hanne Larsen. She's a pioneering technology executive leading transformational change at Equinor, one of the world's largest energy companies. Over the course of her award-winning career, spanning various leadership roles in IT, HR, and subsurface operations, Åshild has overseen numerous organizational initiatives and global digital transformations. With over 2 decades of experience navigating complex corporate contexts worldwide, Åshild brings invaluable expertise in driving innovation, managing people and processes, and cultivating positive change. Her leadership acumen is bolstered by strong communication and leadership building skills that have made her widely sought after. Her leadership acumen is bolstered by strong communication and leadership building skills that have made her a widely sought after public speaker. Beyond her professional success, she's a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion in technology. Through her work, she aims to expand opportunities for women and underrepresented groups in STEM fields, and her commitment to empowering others stems from a dedication to equity, community, and harnessing technology's full potential to transform lives. So you can imagine why I have her here. Åshild, welcome to this book interview. I am thrilled to have you here. We had a conversation already before the formal start, and it's already promising because you have this spirit and this sponsorship and support focus for women that I absolutely admire. So it's a real pleasure to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so eager to get started on an interesting discussion. I'm just bursting with energy here.
Wonderful. We have similar missions. You mentioned to make this world a better place, and when you leave it and when you entered it, and I think this is the most beautiful mission that we can have. And it is also a mission that can translate in different strategies or different approaches. And you are doing this in your corporate environment. I am doing it by writing a book and many other things, but I feel that the energy and the spirit and the vibration is similar. And I wanted to delve a little bit deeper with you into part 2 of my book, which is Rewriting Your Empowering Script. And chapter 2 is about your inner compass. Mm-hmm. And I'm so curious I know how I developed my inner compass. I also developed a program which is called the Life Fulfillment Compass, and it is all about that inner compass. So I'm so curious to find out, how have you constructed that inner compass, and what's the impact of navigating through life with a solid inner compass for you?
I'm going to probably disappoint you a little bit now, Elena, because it was mostly trying and failing and coincidence. When I started out as a leader, I was actually pretty insecure. I had these preconceived notions about what a leader should be and say and look like. And I tried that on for size for a little while before I decided that I'm wasting so much energy on trying to be something and someone that I'm really not. So I'd better figure out, who am I as a human being, as a leader, as a woman in this world, and what is it that I want to achieve? And to me, it's really about a couple of key things. The basis of my leadership is really connection. I love to connect and interact with people, so I make sure that I'm always available for that. I love supporting other women in making their place in the world. And the thing that really drives me at the end of the day is making a difference. Mm-hmm. And to me, it doesn't have to end with me standing at the pedestal being hailed for all the difference I'm making. The satisfaction for me is seeing it happen. No one has to know that it was me, even, as long as I know that I moved some things and shook some things that ended up in making the world a tiny bit better. So that's what it's about for me.
What is inspiring you to do?
It starts with the fact that I have an annoying amount of energy, so I have to do something with it. And it's much better to use it for something that you think is important. So that's one side of it. Then, looking back at my own history, I am the grandchild of a woman who was very intelligent. She had 3 brothers. Her schooling was stopped after the 7th grade because the family could only afford to support the boys who were later going to support their families. So from a very tender age, I have been told by my grandmother that I could be anything and do anything I wanted. At the same time, as a woman, you meet quite a few obstacles on your way, even if you have that as your belief. So I just want to smoothen the way for others. And I also have 2 girls who are teenagers now. And I really want to see a world where they do not have to encounter some of the bias that women have traditionally been encountering, and in some cases still are encountering today.
I meet a lot of women and I work with a lot of women that see themselves as the world sees them, as their partner sees them, or their parents see them, or society see them. And instead of having this own image of themselves, of who they really are, they really function, behave, think, talk like they are expected to be. And so I love it when you say that your grandmother already brought you that message that you can be whoever you want to be, because this is very powerful impulse on how you see yourself in life. So how, if you would address women that don't live fully, that don't raise their voice, that don't show up with their talents and their gifts because they feel that this is not what is expected from them, what is your message to them? Here for this book, or in general, maybe in your relationships with the women that work with you in your organization or beyond?
I normally try to remind them that means that their talent and their great ideas and everything they could do to change things is being wasted. In the corporate world, lots of the conversations I have with fellow women is when they are looking for a new role and they are wondering whether they should apply or not, because there's this list of qualifications and there's 10 qualifications and they only have 9.5. And I just look at them and shake my head and say, but why do you want this job even? You're completely overqualified. You're removing the opportunity to develop, to learn, to grow. Why would you even do that to yourself? You should go for that job instead. But there is this thing that seems to be, at least perhaps a common trait among women, that we are a bit risk averse. We want to make sure that we cross all the T's and we dot all the I's before we think we can do something. And that honestly, I'm almost going to speak Northern Norwegian now, so I'm not going to do that because it sounds a lot worse in English. But you're ruining it for yourself. You're removing an opportunity for yourself, and you're letting your potential go to waste. And the world needs that potential. The world needs those ideas that you have and what you can bring. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just go out there and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. In my book, I mentioned Claire Zammit, who is an Australian living in America, and she is very big in empowering women. And she has done her PhD research on that. And one of the examples is exactly what you say. And this is like a representation of the fact that we as women have been culturally, historically, epigenetically, intergenerationally, call it like you want, that we have been raised and told to stay low. And if we have dreams or ambitions, don't put them too high. And so this is very important in terms of mentoring and coaching and supporting women. Because if you are asking women, what is it that you would like to become or that you would like to achieve? By definition, they are aiming very low. There's research on that. This is not just imagination. They are aiming too low. And so it takes a different kind of mentor, a different kind of leader, a different kind of coach in order to open the space and provide safety, but also provide sponsorship and provide a little bit of challenge in order to see, to give them access to what they can become if they want, to give them access to all their strengths and their gifts. And this is a very beautiful example that we see in job applications, in promotions, in salary negotiations, but also in what is it that we want to do with our lives. Because once we start dreaming big, there's this machine starting of partners, parents, other stakeholders that say, hey, wait a minute, because if you are going to start doing this, then what about us? Because you're taking care of us, you're serving us. These are things that are a little bit anecdotal, but they are reality. And this is also what you bring, what I want to bring with the book. It is about dream big. And don't think about the how yet, because we also tend to dream and put our aspirations at a level where we already see how we can get there. That's completely underperforming, actually. And it is so important to point that out. And you can probably feel the energy that I have in these topics.
It's coming through the screen, Helena, I can promise you that.
And I know that this is something that you also see every day. And so it's so important to bring this message that we can see ourselves differently, that we don't need the mirror that society and our stakeholders hold in front of us, that we look into our own mirror and see that image and just love it, embrace it, and take it fully.
I couldn't agree more, but it can be challenging. I just remember this is some few years back, I was in this session in a women's network, and there was this presenter who said, you are women, you don't care about money, you don't care about power. And I got so annoyed, I raised my hand and said, I think I must be a man trapped in a woman's body then, because I care about these things. Why do I care? Because I want change. And if you're going to change things, you're going to need impact, you're going to need money, you're going to need power. So that we need to get away from this sort of putting people into, as you refer to in your book, into these societal boxes where the expectations are so narrow, because it means that not only are individuals losing out, but we as societies and as a world are losing out globally.
Yeah. Absolutely. And of course, there's challenges. There will always be challenges. And there again, it is about how we look at them. It is also about how we look at failure, because research also shows that when we fail, that we are taking this personally as women. When men fail, once again, it's research. And please don't think I have anything against men. I'm looking to be complementary. But when men fail, if they go in reflection, fine, but they never take it on themselves. When women fail, a lot of us say, okay, I am a failure. So what would be your advice there to activate your strengths and to reframe challenges and failure in a way that they're like powerful tools for us?
Look, to me, failure is one thing. It is an opportunity to learn, to do things differently. So I never spend a lot of time on talking myself down. I focus on, okay, what happened in this situation? Given what you know now and the outcome, what could you have done differently and at what point? How can you take that learning with you so that when you're in a similar situation the next time, you don't make that same mistake? That's and sort of forcing yourself, instead of going down and diminishing yourself, forcing yourself to see this as a learning journey that we're on, and looking at how can the mistakes, small or big, that we make in life, because we all make them, regardless of gender or age or whatever, how can you turn that into something that's actually really powerful when it comes to your own personal development and your own approach?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of times I get, it is so difficult to make decisions. It's so difficult to make choices. Because like you say, what if I make a mistake? What if this is a failure? especially if it is about something professionally where people are looking at me. It's already, I don't feel comfortable in that role. Or even if everybody thinks I'm successful, sometimes I really feel completely depleted and overwhelmed. So that's basically, again, to go back to the beginning of this conversation about this inner compass, like there is so much information. There's so many things that we don't know. And yet as leaders, not only leaders in organizations, but as people leading our lives, we need to make a lot of decisions that like we feel we don't have it. And that's where this inner compass comes back. So although you said you were going to disappoint me on this topic, which you have not, what are your guides to make choices, to make decisions when you know that you don't have all the elements, because we possibly cannot have them?
Now, first, a thing that's really important to me is that people should understand not doing anything is also a decision. You may fool yourself into thinking, oh, I'm not choosing that or this, so then I'm not making a decision. But in reality, you are.
Yeah.
And that decision is actually shying away from something that could be incredibly great or incredibly powerful. So I make lots of decisions every day. I honestly think choosing something is better than inaction. And if it turns out the next day I made the wrong choice, then I make another decision to rectify that. To me, it's very simple. And if you are afraid of saying that you made a mistake, I think again, you're taking away a couple of opportunities. One, to learn, and two, to create an environment around you as a leader where you actually share mistakes, you learn from them together, and you create an environment of trust and psychological safety where people actually dare to bring everything they are to work and can expect to be appreciated for it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Another popular part of my book, which I only know because a lot of women that I'm interviewing are choosing those parts and those chapters, is part 4, which is about pioneering your potential. And I do understand why. And the first chapter is about envisioning limitless possibilities. As I already said, it is about not keeping yourself small, not thinking small of yourself, but just go for the moon or even beyond the moon. And so how do you do that? Because for me, it is about gaining clarity about my strengths and my talents and my values and my passions, and using all these and putting them in my mission for life. So defining a vision and defining a mission in life, how did that work for you?
No, I think for me, it really, I can't say that I've had a sort of a huge goal. I should become exactly that or exactly this. For me, it's about the journey, really. And I've had a pretty strange career, probably in many people's opinions, because my first job in Equinor was as an offshore catering assistant, basically doing cleaning, kitchen, and laundry duty offshore on oil rigs for the first 6 years. Then I moved into HR and into executive HR positions, and then I was asked to take on the role as global CIO of Equinor. And of course, at that point in time, I didn't have a technology education. I had worked with IT for a year or so, about 6 or 7 years back, but by no means was I qualified for that job. But I thought to myself, if they think that I can do it, they are probably right. What could go wrong here? Not much, really. I'm going to take it. And
Wow.
that was actually perhaps the biggest learning experience of my life from a leadership perspective, because I went from a situation where I knew everyone, I had full overview of everything that happened in HR. I led a lot of the corporate projects, to an area where I had no formal qualifications, no network, no idea what they had been up to for the last 10 years or so. But it was a huge learning opportunity for me. And as a leader, then you have to go through a process where you think about a number of things. One is, what are your strengths that you can put to work in this new situation? What do you have that perhaps the team that you're going to lead or the area that you're going to lead doesn't have? And for me, it was a good business understanding, a very strong ability to conceptualize things, communicate them in a way that's understandable. So I, in many ways, became a bridge between technology and business. So I think that was very interesting. And the second thing is that you have to be willing to invest the time to learn, because you have to understand what your people are doing. You also have to empower them and trust that they know their areas and that they know them better than you. But it's your job to be able to contextualize all of that. So I used some stupid tricks. I would, for instance, sit down with people and say, okay, what are you doing? Tell it to me and why it's important. And then I would come back to them and say, here is a memo outlining what I understood from our conversation. Am I on or am I off? So you have to invest the time it takes, but oh my, what a fantastic journey it is to set sail onto something you don't quite know what is, but then experience that you're actually able to do it and to do it well. And after IT, 6 years there, I moved on to the subsurface, also an area that I do not have a degree in and knew very little about, but here I am, making a difference.
That's amazing. And really, thank you for sharing that, because indeed, like going from HR to CIO to IT is a big leap. I can see the eyes of people watching this or listening to this open. What? Oh my God, because it's amazing. And what I feel, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you are looking at a role rather than a job description, that you are looking at how to add value and that you are connecting with your team. Which are three extremely important things, because I often see with women that I'm coaching that they are like completely out of space. If they make a promotion and they are leading people that are actually doing something that they cannot do themselves. And leading people, leading a team, especially at C-level, is not about doing the job yourself. No. It is about trusting that people will be able to do the job, and you are consolidating everything. And you say it's a stupid trick to sitting next to them and asking them what they are doing. I don't think it is a stupid trick. I think it is a very conscious way of understanding what is going on and giving people also the space, giving people a voice to express what they are doing, and then asking, did I understand correctly? I think this is amazing if you are working with a team, if you are working as a C-level, as a leader, but also in a project, or if you want to achieve something that is not corporate, but in personal life or for a good cause. For me, this is a very, very different way to work with people, because you're literally sitting next to them. Isn't that beautiful?
It works for me, and I have to say that Equinor has a set of leadership principles that have helped me a lot when moving roles like that. And there are three of them. It's shape, empower, deliver, which basically is about, and I always think about that when I enter into a new role. When it comes to shape, I think about what is my mandate and where are the limits, and how can I push those limits if I see that there is a requirement for doing that. What is the legacy I want to leave behind? What do I want to be remembered for when I leave this role? Because at one point in a big corporate, you will switch roles. That's just life. And then it's empowerment. How can you actually work with your team to make them feel that there is space for them? And honestly, I felt that my biggest leadership development journey was that move from HR, where I felt like I could do any job just as well as the person who was currently in it, because that gave me the opportunity to be hands in too much. And then when you move to an area where you cannot do as much, you have to carve out another way to be useful. And that is a much more strategic approach, and it empowers your people much, much more. Yeah. And at the end of the day, of course, it is about the deliveries, but if you know where you want to go and the legacy you want to leave behind, you have a team that feels empowered and you are there to guide that totality and make sure it fits the vision, then the deliveries also will come.
Yeah. I'm curious, we're talking about these untapped areas that you moved to several times in corporate. Do you also have these beyond corporate, where you are doing things where you say, I don't know this, but I know myself, I know my strengths, and I can do this, as an example or a source of inspiration?
Yeah, I do a lot of volunteer work, for instance, to increase the number of girls in tech. So that's an area that I know. But what I've also done together with a couple of colleagues, now friends, and thankfully with the blessing of Equinor, is that I've started a venture capital company focused on enabling women entrepreneurs. Because at one point, that was actually as we were doing an event, a worldwide event during COVID, I came across some numbers related to venture capital and women entrepreneurs. And I discovered, together with the others in the team, that only 1% of venture capital goes to women founders. And that, I have to, really annoyed me, because to me, that means that 50% of the ideas that this world could benefit from never receive financing, so they're never realized. And the fact that most investors are male, and not through any ill will or anything, but they are probably looking for products or ideas or problems that are relevant to them. So we've set out to change that. So we're currently trying to build a fund of 1 billion NOK focused on supporting female entrepreneurs, but also pulling in partners, female partners, to work in venture capital to increase the diversity in venture capital as such, and also in the boardrooms through the companies that we will invest in. So we've set up a big network of women who are ready to take on board roles in those companies. So that's just something I do in my spare time. But as I warned you, Helena, I do have a boundless amount of energy. So I'm trying to use it
because
for good.
you talk about it organizing a birthday party, which is absolutely not the case. And
It's
this
been
is,
years of hard work, but it's been so interesting and so
yeah,
inspiring. And this is really one of the things I want to achieve, so that when I'm 80 years old and I'm sitting somewhere on a beach up in northern Norway with a cold Coke Zero or whatever kind of drink strikes my fancy at that moment, I'm going to be able to look back and say that I made a difference.
yeah.
I left this better than what I found it.
Mm.
And just thinking about that is immensely satisfying.
Absolutely. You don't even have to wait until you're 80 before you can think about that and feel very satisfied. I think this is also in the journey, in the process, in the connections with other people, with like-minded women, like-minded men that are basically supporting the same cause. There's already so much joy and satisfaction in co-creating these things. I think it is amazing. And there are other women here interviewed that are doing similar things. So there's Lucy Cho in Dubai, for example, that you should absolutely connect with, because she's doing the same. And this is about absolutely paying it forward and understanding the needs. And it is true in terms of financing, in terms of venture capital, there is a system that is obviously not working for women. There are so many systems in this world. I'm trying to keep this short. There are so many systems in this world that are not working for women, at least not in order to really optimize our potential. And it is wonderful to see how people are detecting these systems and not trying to break them or force them, but just set up another system. It's sometimes I say we have to bring our opinion and our voices to the table, especially in corporate. And I say, yes, and if it doesn't work, just create a different table. We don't have to play that game. We can play different games. And then people will say, oh, there's other games to play. Let's just go there. And it's not about fight and resistance, because this is taking so much energy. It's about creating different things. And when they work, they will trigger people to change and to be open to alternatives, right?
No, and if you're in one of those sticky situations where it's really difficult, well, I've learned it the hard way, the only person you can change and the only person's approach you can change is your own.
Exactly.
So then moving the discussion to another table is a really good allegory there, I think. I really like that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are definitely a role model. Probably you will say, no, I don't know, but you are. People are looking at you in your organization. The readers of the book are looking at you now and listening and getting inspired by you. Do you have role models?
Oh,
Do you
yes,
have people that you learn from?
I do. Both women and men, and my biggest role model, I think, is my grandmother still, who set me on this course of having a firm belief that I could do anything as long as I wanted to work hard for it. But I also have some previous both male and female bosses who were really good role models for me and gave me both the support but also the challenge that I needed to take the next step in a way. And one of them is a previous boss of mine who is well known throughout the energy industry. Her name is Margaret Evrum. She led the big technology area in Equinor, previously Statoil. And she was just a machine, but also an extremely caring leader and human being. And so she taught me a lot about what kind of leader I wanted to be myself and how to go about it. Always great role models around that can, if you have self-doubts, and we all do occasionally, that you can look to and think that, okay, if she's already doing it, why should I not be able to do it?
Beautiful. I think it's really important that we find our role models if we want to grow. Sometimes people say, but there are not a lot of role models, or there are women at certain levels or in certain activities, but then we do not resonate with how they behave, with who they are. And then I say, this is not possible because there's so many amazing women. And these interviews are also a great opportunity to present role models. I believe we need them. And especially for women, it is difficult because it's only 2 generations before us where women started actively participating in life as we know it, in terms of access to university, access to a bank account, the right to divorce, the right to organize your family life by birth control, all these things. So when you also look at, there's this series, I think it's on Netflix, that is called Mad Men, and then you look at how women in the 60s were seen in the office. I'm now watching a beautiful Italian series about the first Italian lawyer. It is heartwarming, but it's also to be very frustrated and sad if you look at how she had to struggle. She was so bright, and how she had to struggle to do something in the legal area. And actually her nomination was canceled by the Supreme Court. And of course, it's difficult for us to find role models because this is like only the second, maybe third generation of women actively contributing at this level in society. And that's also why it is so difficult for men to see us in that different role. I live in the south of Spain, and here we had water and electricity in the 1980s.
Wow.
And then here there was water and electricity arriving, giving women the possibility to do other things than to do the laundry by hand and other things and develop. But then if you see, I'm a little bit on tricky ground here, but if you see how men still are looking at women, because this is like only 2 generations ago when women were at home working very hard, and at night they were like exhausted and didn't come up for themselves and raise their voices anymore because they were just exhausted by doing all the things that they needed to do in order to keep the family living. But you can see still this patriarchism and this machismo here. And again, it's not my opinion. Read the newspapers about what is going on here in Spain in the family lives, which is sad. But this is because we don't have these role models. And so it is so important that we find these. And together with finding role models, also find allies, like-minded women that have our backs, that support us, and that really encourage us to become who we want to become instead of projecting their own fears and frustrations, which is also sometimes happening, right?
Yeah, that's something you can experience actually. And I think allyship is so important. But I've had many good female allies, but also many good male allies, because an important thing to think about and this is not true for all countries. I live in Scandinavia and operate here where we're through several generations, women have had perhaps a slightly different position in society because my mother has worked full-time all her life. My grandmother did the same. So there's a really high participation of women in the work life, and women's students are outperforming male students and so on. I guess that's a trend across the world. But two things that I think are important here. One, you touched upon it. There is still improvements to be made when it comes to how women support each other. Because I've been told by other women that I'm too visible, I'm too opinionated, I make too much noise, which I think is a little bit unfair because I don't mind if their life dream is to be a stay-at-home mom and bake muffins. As long as they are happy and feel fulfilled by that, I'm completely okay with it. But I also think that I deserve respect for having made a different choice, even if it's not their choice. It's still mine to make.
Yeah.
And the second thing is around diversity. Male allyship is so important because it shouldn't be the accountability of women to rectify the mistakes of previous generations. Men need to take accountability here. They need to take an interest in women in the workplace and look at what they can do. They need to think consciously about what world they want to leave for their daughters and what they want their daughters to experience as they grow up. So there are many aspects to this and many important things I think that we have an opportunity to do better. And that's good.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Beautiful. It's so to the point. Final words for this interview, for the book readers.
Now, for me, I think it's important to it starts with having the belief in yourself that you can be or do whatever you want. There is really nothing to be afraid of. If you fall flat on your face, you get up, you dust yourself off, you take the learning from it, and then you take the next step. It's so easy and so difficult at the same time, but it's completely doable. So make a plan for where you want to be, make a vision for what the difference that you want to make in your life and in this world is, and start doing it step by step. I think that's my best advice.
That's
Beyond
beautiful.
having fun doing it, of course.
Absolutely. And please allow me to add one thing. There are a lot of women who have your back. We have your back. If you fall down, if you just shake off the dust and go ahead, continue, and maybe your ankle is hurting or your knee is hurting, we have your back. Look for the women that have your back. And thank you so much, Åshild, for this wonderful conversation that was full of gold. And I'm looking forward to continue because there's so much wisdom in your words, in your life, in your vision. And I can't wait to learn more. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.